You're listening to the Braver Angels podcast, a new way of talking politics. I'm your host, Alma Cook. Because this is a music-related episode, I wanted to start off by just plugging Braver Angels' music programming. A lot of you probably won't even know that we have music programming, and that's okay. Your homework is to visit braverangels.org/music, where you can find out all about what we're doing in this area. There's a link there to join a Facebook group for songwriters, and that's open to songwriters of all genres, all experience levels. There's also a link to donate to our music team directly if you like what you see. And you can also, if you're an artist yourself, apply to be a featured artist of the month, where you'll get a full-length interview and newsletter coverage, social media coverage, etc. We're really just looking to build relationships and support artists who are all across the political spectrum. So braverangels.org/music is the place to go for that. With that, Coleman Hughes is someone who probably needs no introduction with this crowd. He was introduced to many of us in 2019 when he testified before Congress about reparations, and others of us the year before that when he appeared on the Sam Harris podcast to talk about racial disparities. And it seems that ever since then, he's just been on this never-ending podcast tour. He writes a lot. He's a contributor at City Journal, Quillette, the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, blah, 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 long list of accolades for Coleman. But we're not here to talk about that today. We are here with him today because he's a rapper and a musician. Coleman, welcome back to Braver Angels.
Glad to be here.
I wanted to start just digging into your background in music in general. I'm vaguely familiar with your musical background. I know that you are enrolled in Julliard's jazz studies program that was for trombone. So what was the story arc there that got you interested in music and jazz and applying to Julliard in the first place?
All right, so I guess I started violin when I was 3 years old, and I was clearly better at it than average, but I had no passion for it, and I wasn't a prodigy by any means. And I started playing piano when I was 5. This is all classical. And similarly, I clearly had a knack for it, enough for my parents to keep encouraging me, but I wasn't a prodigy and I didn't love it per se. And then when I was 8, I started playing drums, and maybe I was 7, and I think I was probably the best at drums of all the instruments I did. And there was this program at Hillside Elementary School where I went from 3rd to 5th grade called Drums of Thunder, where they would get these 10 and 11-year-old kids into a drum corps, sort of like that Nick Cannon movie Drumline. And we would go play halftime shows at the New York Knicks, I guess, was it the New Jersey Jets back then? New York Giants, Washington Wizards. And so we would be these 10 and 11-year-old kids playing these kind of complicated drum corps pieces at halftime. And it was a big crowd pleaser. And there was kind of a military structure to that group. So the best drummer in the group was called the commander. And I rose up to be the commander by 5th grade.
Oh my gosh, you're kidding me.
I was very proud of. Yeah, so I was I had a knack for it young. And that was the first time I really enjoyed performing. So by that point, I played piano and drums pretty well for my age. And then I got to 6th grade and I was playing timpani in the orchestra. And it was incredible for me. It was my favorite thing because it was suddenly I went to this private school with sort of a real orchestra. We were playing both movie music, but also legit orchestra songs. And my band teacher saw how interested I was and let me join the high school orchestra as a 6th grader, basically. So over time, I just kind of got jealous and wanted to play an actual instrument. Not that drums isn't an actual instrument, but in an orchestra, it's just counting rests. So I took up trombone in 6th grade, I think, and soon got pretty good at it. Joined the jazz band, started obsessively listening to jazz. And by the time I graduated high school, I was considered one of the better jazz trombonists my age in the country. And I got into Julliard with the plan of being a professional musician. This is before I wrote or podcasted or anything. And it was right around that time I started rapping too. And then eventually dropped out of Julliard, went to Columbia, and kept doing everything musical on the side. And finally, I'm bringing rap back into my mainstream persona. So that's it in a nutshell.
That's super interesting. I didn't know that you were such a multi-instrumentalist. Do you still dabble in the other instruments that you mentioned, or is it really just trombone and music production and rapping at this point?
I'm a pretty decent piano player. Like I couldn't make money professionally, but I can play.
Sure.
Most practical purposes.
Yeah, and that works. I mean, if you're producing your own stuff, especially in hip hop,
Yeah.
there's no like law that says you have to be this like astounding keys player to be able to make the track.
Right.
There's a way to do that. So you released a mixtape around like 2017. Is that true?
I released like 4 mixtapes. I think I released 4 mixtapes between maybe 2015 and 2017 or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I honestly have a hard time tracking with it because I don't know that all of the music is in one place from the last few years.
No, it's not. I took a lot of it down.
I understand why, not because I've heard it and it's bad, but because I know what it's like to take my own stuff off the internet.
Yeah, it's just kind of, it's my first drafts, and I might put some of it back up, get it remixed and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah. So while all this stuff is going on, I mean, it wasn't clear to me, and it seems like you admit this forthrightly, it wasn't clear to me that music was meant to be like a major part of your identity while you're off testifying to Congress and appearing on these different shows and working on your writing. And I don't say that pejoratively. I'm the last person to talk about like having a consistent schedule of music releases. But what do you consider your relationship to quote unquote being an artist in light of how you have your hands in so many things?
So, I mean, it's interesting because it's interesting how a story changes depending on where you're viewing it from. So from my first person perspective, what happened in my life is that I was a professional musician and all my best friends were musicians, and we all lived in New York together. And even though at that point, by the time I was 19, 20, I was at Columbia, I was still living with musicians. My entire social network was musicians and artists. And then I was always interested in ideas and writing. So I started doing that on the side. And then I became the guy that was like, wait, did you know that Coleman, the trombonist and rapper, is like writing on the side? And it's kind of like his writing is blowing up. Isn't that interesting that though his main identity as a musician, he has this like writing side hustle or something? And then obviously all the people that learned of me through writing for Quillette and other outlets and going on Sam Harris's podcast, Dave Rubin's podcast, etc. Some of them were faintly aware of me being a musician from their perspective on the side. But many of them weren't. So to them, I became the writer, podcaster, cultural commentator, pundit, who, do you know, he does some music on the side. From my perspective, I'm just being myself, doing all the things that I've always been interested in. So depending which vantage point you look at it, what I'm doing on the side can seem like one thing or the other. But, definitely in terms of what I'm most known for, in terms of the most people know me for, it's still writing and podcasting for sure.
I wonder what the split of your time is like and has been like and will be like going forward. I mean, there's something really fun and challenging about being someone who's like an artist and fill in the blank, and whether or not like the artist is the side thing or the and part is the side thing, or they're like 50-50 in balance. It's interesting. And in your case, that's social political commentator and musician. In my case, that's like oil and gas chick and musician. And I love it. I mean, I also just feel like I'm just being myself, and I wouldn't want to be this like one-dimensional character that some people in my life seem to think I'm aspiring to be. Everyone just assumes that you want to be famous on like with a microphone in your hand full time, singing to a crowd. But my life wouldn't be as cool if I hadn't randomly ended up in the oil field. And I love it. And it even like works its way into my music, but I'm hyper aware all the time of the opportunity cost of when I'm doing one thing, I'm not doing the other. When I'm doing the other thing, I'm not doing the other thing. So how do you digest that part of the reality of being an artist? And
that's a good question. I think I'm usually so engrossed in what I'm doing that I don't worry that I'm wasting time not doing something else. So if I'm working on, if I'm writing a piece, let's say, I'm never worried that I'm spending too much time on this and my music is going to suffer as a result, because what I've learned about myself is my passions have remained very stable. Like I've never, maybe I've gone through periods of a few months where I'm more into one than the other, but it always comes back because it seems to be more or less who I am, at least, 16 years old to 26, roughly. I care about ideas. I care about writing. I care about clear thinking. And I care about music, making music, listening to music, living and breathing music. And so I think I work best when I feel I can go completely into one or the other at any point. If I'm inspired by a particular idea, a particular piece I'm writing, or by a particular song I'm making. And I can just shut it out, focus on it completely. And when I'm done, I can go back to doing the other thing. And what I've had to work on more as I get older is being able to have a sane adult schedule where I can't disappear for a week, and because I'm working on something. Because I have like a team of people that are depending me to get a certain podcast on this date, and I live in a society, in a community, and I can't just like I used to do when I was 19 or 20. If I was working on a piece for Quillette or on a song, I could just disappear and not talk to anyone for a week. So that is increasingly less possible, but that's okay because I'm finding ways to work more intermittently, like work on something for 3 hours and then, do that so that I have more of a sane adult schedule.
so what I'm hearing is that in the moment, you're at peace with that balance because you're doing all things that you're really passionate about doing. Is there ever a part of you that looks back at the last, 6 years? I mean, I don't know what you came on the scene in around 2018. So what is that, 4 years already? 5? Do you look back at all and feel mixed about how you didn't put out as much music content as you would have liked? Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, retrospect it's easy to have regrets as an artist. And I know for myself, like I look back at my last 6 years and I'm like, what was I doing? I mean, I know what I was doing. I was having a really, really good time and building a company and having fun with my friends and staying up late, having good conversations. It's not stuff that I regret. But there is a part of me that's like, oof, but if I had just gotten up a little bit earlier each day, if I just put out, done a little bit more songwriting, invested a little bit more money, whatever it is. Do you have any regrets or mixed feelings looking back? Not that your life is over. It's super not.
No, not really. I mean, I can't say I've felt any regret because I mean, it's no doubt true that I could have worked harder, but for some reason, I really don't feel that regret. I think I've always been well served by my instincts of what to do when and what to devote myself to when. And I think things have always happened for me sort of when they're meant to happen, so to speak, not as in divinely ordained to happen, but when they made the most sense for me to do. So, there was, over a year where I basically didn't make a single beat. I didn't write a single rhyme. But it was because I was working really hard on writing, and that's what I wanted to be doing for that year. And there have been other times where I haven't watched the news in 2 weeks because I'm working on a song all day that might not come out for a year or 2 years or something. And I'm fine with that because it's what I'm seizing the moment of my highest passion for an idea or a song and trying to get it done. And in general, I don't think that I've really had the problem of not doing enough. That really hasn't been my problem in life. My problem has sometimes been to get too into one thing and neglect everything else as a result, which is not quite the same as being lazy or not doing enough or spending too much time hanging out with friends. It's what it is, what it comes down to is I think it was all time well spent. And I consider staying up late, having great conversations with my friends to be time well spent. So I don't care if it was unproductive. What I want to do is live a life where I look back and really think almost all of it was time well spent, or a great majority of it was time well spent, whether or not it was productive.
That's something I resonate with a lot. And it sounds like you have a really good head on your shoulders about it. Well, now that we've kind of set the scene for what you've been doing with music, outside of music, the last few years, I want to talk about your new releases. But first, I want to just have you describe your style a little bit for people who haven't heard it, which obviously they should go out, press pause and listen to it right now. But I know I hate the what artists do you sound like? What's your genre questions? But every artist has to answer these questions if a million times in their life. I know Camille Foster compared your music to Odd Future, and I thought that was kind of an interesting and apt comparison. But how would you put it, Coleman?
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't. I'm really bad at that.
Everyone is so bad at it. We have to do it all the time, but we're still so bad at it.
I can name my influences for sure. I can't really describe my music. Not that I'm not saying my music's indescribable.
That's what that's what a lot of people do actually think that. But even if you don't have that arrogance about it, you're so zoomed into your own stuff. Are you really thinking, oh, I really sound like Emily King on this track? No, it's just your head doesn't even go there.
I mean, the truth is I'm bad at describing other people's music too. If you ask me to write a piece of music criticism, I get writer's block because I'm just no good. I mean, I'm not saying I couldn't get decent at it if I were passionate about it. I'm sure I could improve, but I just don't have a good instinct for describing music using the kind of vocabulary that you would read in a complex article or a. Sure. I don't read those articles. I don't really resonate with them. Sometimes I hear music described and I don't really get how the words link to how I hear it. So I can definitely tell you all my influences. Odd Future, as Camille pointed to, is a huge influence on me. In particular, Earl Sweatshirt and Tyler, the Creator. Kendrick Lamar, Chance the Rapper was a big early influence of me. Early Eminem, MF Doom from the 90s was a big influence on me. Kanye West, Childish Gambino, Flying Lotus and Madlib, as far as producers go, were big influences on me. Pretty much all of mainstream jazz, from 1940 through 1970 is a big influence on me. Michael Jackson is a huge influence on me. Drake is a huge influence. A lot of soul and Motown, Stevie Wonder, the Impressions, Curtis Mayfield. That whole species of music has influenced me a lot too. And I guess that's a good place. Lil Wayne was actually my first real love in the hip hop world when I was a kid. So all of those would be a starting point.
Oh my gosh, you did an amazing job.
Where I'm coming from. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's a great starting point. I could never in a million years name that many artists who influenced me just off the bat. I feel like I'm a deer in the headlights when anybody asks me anything.
I know what you mean.
Family of questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, with that, let's talk a little bit about one of your newer songs, Blasphemy. This was the first of 2 big music videos that you released recently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that you mentioned Tyler, the Creator, because there were like a few scenes in here that really reminded me of him, and I was going to bring him up. But first, let's talk about the songwriting. I don't know what your process is like, Coleman, but I know that in my own life, there are these moments, like events or scenes that I'm seeing playing out somewhere, or scenes that I'm a part of, conversations, whatever, where I just know instantly, oh, there's a song here. There has to be a song written about this. And it's vague, like it's fuzzy, but the outline of it is there. Mm-hmm. And I spend just obsessively the next day or week or whatever it is, trying to bring that outline into higher resolution. And so I wonder, with Blasphemy, what was the moment, if there was one, that made you go, oh, this has to be a song?
So Blasphemy, basically what happened with that song is, as I mentioned, there's a period where I hadn't worked on any music, any hip hop in over a year. And I testified before Congress, got booed and kind of heckled, and came back to New York and went to a hip hop show with some of my old friends that I used to do shows with in Brooklyn. And they had seen my testimony and they kicked me out on site. And these were like friends of mine, people I used to do, like, we literally used to do shows together as like a rap duo group. And I was like, can we just talk about this? I understand you disagreed with my take. But they just literally kicked me out on site, and I was very hurt by that. And that same night, I did Molly, and I was thinking about it and talking about it and trying to understand the whole psychology of the situation of sort of friendships ending over political disagreements. And I think it might have been the next day that I got my MIDI keyboard out and made that beat and just kind of felt the vibe of the song. And you described it really well. You said, like, something like you see the whole outline of the song almost at once, and then you spend time making it more vivid. It's very much like that. It's like what does the sculptors say? They have a marble block and they can see the statue within it.
Mm-hmm. They just take away the things that are not. Yeah.
Exactly. But it's like you basically have the goal right there, and you just have to tweak and tweak and tweak until it is what you conceived of it to be.
Yeah. And there's almost, I don't know if it's like this for you, but for me, there's like this song almost couldn't come out differently if I tried. Like, it wants to be a certain way. Yeah. And the analogy that I've consistently used is that of scratch art. I don't know if you're too young to remember this, if they even had this when you were kids, but those like sheets of paper that had a rainbow color or some kind of design behind it. And then this black waxy substance on the surface that you would scratch away to reveal what was behind it. And you could
I remember those.
They're fun. They were a blast. I mean, they make you feel like you're good at art because like there's something there that's beautiful.
Would it be like a silver behind it, or is that
sometimes? Yeah, that would be a thing. Yeah, I think I'm picturing one of those in my head. I know that I had a silver one at some point. Yeah, but the creative process is really interesting. You just get consumed by this thing that seems to be outside of yourself. And I know that you're not a religious person, but for me, it's a really kind of religious divine experience that I can't put a lot of words to.
Well, yeah, you can, I can see why people describe it in religious language, because it inspiration feels like it's coming from outside yourself. It feels like this song is being given to you by an outside source. It doesn't feel like you are laboring to create something that doesn't already exist.
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels like it feels like the prophets, I mean, you can see why prophets describe their ideas this way, because when creativity is flowing, it doesn't feel like you're making something. It doesn't feel like you're cooking a meal from scratch that isn't otherwise there.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like there's just a meal there, and for some reason you're the way it's going to get into the world, and all you have to do is just see it clearly. You just have to spend enough time looking at it, and it feels more like a gift than a creation.
Yes.
So it's easy when it's working well. It's incredibly easy.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. Although there's a fair number of songs that end up on the cutting room floor. I don't know if it's like that for you, where you see the outline at the start and then you realize, oh, I just can't, it's not working. This isn't quite good enough to launch. And I might recycle the parts of it later in some other piece. But does that ever happen to you?
All the time.
All the time. Yeah. I mean, if you're creating enough to be good at it, you've probably created enough to have a lot of like very mediocre stuff that you had to leave behind.
Totally. I mean, I'm going to release an album this year, and I probably made like, I don't know, 60, 70 sketches of songs.
Good Lord.
And eventually 12 or 13 are going to be on the album, but a lot of them are just like straight up bad. Like, I don't like this idea. I don't believe, for the most part, that even great artists are constantly shooting out gold. Like, I really think that if you're ever stuck or ever feeling any kind of writer's block or creative block, you should let the quantity drive the quality. Just make one shitty thing every day and commit yourself to that goal. Set that as your bar so that you just get around your whole perfectionist psychology, right? Like, make one bad thing every day for a month. Then you will have 30 things, and maybe 3 of them will actually be quite good, and you'll be inspired to keep going. And that's fine. That rate of success is okay if you work hard and work every day.
Yeah, there's this story, I don't know if it's apocryphal, but the story of a pottery class where half the class was told, make as many pots as you can this semester, and the other half was told, spend this entire semester making the best pot that you possibly can. Just the one. And by the end, the half that had been pursuing quantity was the one who had the better pots at the end. And I was reminded of this recently, because speaking of cooking, I've been trying to learn how to cook. I'm a terrible cook. And I had this weird goal in my head. Like, it seemed to make so much sense to me at the time. I was like, I'm going to learn how to cook 10 things really, really, really well. And then I'll just, cycle my 10 things. And in the process, I'll learn so much about how to do this or that. But it didn't work out that way. I mean, first of all, it put a lot of pressure on me to like find the correct 10 things, like the best 10 things that I possibly could, and not really a lot of leeway to explore. But what I realized when I kind of just let that go and started binging Gordon Ramsay videos and trying out every recipe that looked decent, was that I learned a lot of techniques in just pursuing quantity that have improved the quality of the things that are going to be in whatever 10 I land on. Not that it's even a conscious goal of mine.
Yeah, totally.
So I wonder, you had talked a little bit about like with the origin story of the song, you have to have a thick skin to be Coleman Hughes. And you seem to be psychologically well in this area. You're able to take a lot of criticism. But I wonder how you thought about how Blasphemy would play when it was out there in the world, because there's obviously a certain group of people who will digest Blasphemy as some kind of anti-woke anthem. But when I look at the rest of your work, I see a person who has worked very diligently to be hard to pin down as like anti anything at all. I mean, you're very I'm not trying to flatter you, but you're very nuanced and thoughtful and layered in your line of thinking. But in an essay, you can footnote your thinking and you can be very, very precise in the language that you're using, and you're still going to get misinterpreted. So with a song, like in an artistic medium where it's inherently, it's not as precise, inherently it's more up for interpretation and there's no footnotes. Were you worried at all about getting lumped into this like anti-woke rapper contingent that we see emerging?
Yeah, I guess I wasn't that worried about it because I thought, I guess if I was worried about anything, I was worried about people assuming that the point of the music wasn't for its own sake, that it was that I'm just trying to do what I do in writing by other means. Whereas to me, music, all the music I make is valuable for its own sake. Right? It's like what I was worried about is people assuming that I'm trying to reach a different crowd with the same message, and that's the only reason I'm making songs. Whereas the truth is, I've been making songs my whole life since I was like 12, and I love music as a medium. Sometimes I'm going to express things that overlap with what I've written about, but other times I'm not. In the long run, I don't worry about people lumping me in with other creators I don't like, because what I've learned is that if people pay attention to you for long enough, they notice the differences between you and other creators that look superficially similar to you. And also, you know, at the end of the day, people can categorize you how they want. You shouldn't, you know, I feel I can't get too hung up on that sort of thing. Yeah, like I'm really a fan of trying to make things as simple as possible, which is to make what is compelling to you and let the chips fall where they may.
That sounds, again, really just psychologically healthy. I can appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's pick apart the song itself, and particularly the music video, because it's super high production value product. If you haven't seen it, guys, you have to, again, pause this, go watch it. It's way more beautiful than you're expecting it to be. The first thing I noticed about this video, and my friend Kimby Katiti told me to ask you about those. There's two Colemans in the video. There's you did like a Lindsay Lohan Parent Trap thing. And when I was watching the video, I did a physical double take when the second Coleman came into the picture. It was like a minute in. Mm-hmm. And this was because just like musically, the execution of the lyrics was so different on the second Coleman. And to the point where I thought there was a featured rapper on the track. I was like, oh, who did he feature on the song? Because clearly
you're not the first person to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. So where did that idea for the two Colemans come from? And how did you work to program them with those different personalities, both in the video and on the song?
So my manager and sort of business partner, Desh, actually, I was in the middle of writing Blasphemy and he called me up and he was like, you know what you should do, man? You should do a song where you rap against yourself. And I had gotten to the point in Blasphemy where I felt like I was hitting some kind of wall of like, I didn't know how to finish the song. And then he told me that, and I like filed it in the memory bank. And then like a year later or something like that, I was just like, wait a minute. And it poured out in like 5 minutes, that whole back and forth. So I just got to give credit to Desh on that one. That was his idea. And I thought it worked really well for the song. It made the song way more interesting. And it flowed really naturally for me to write that way from two different perspectives. And then for the video is all Ian. Ian Pons Jewell is the director of the video. He's a good friend of mine as well. And basically I told him I want the video to be set in something similar to the Congress setting, but that's all I gave him. Everything else, the whole concept of the video was all him. And
Like the storyboarding, that was all him.
100%.
So
All
the
I gave
rat that
him,
gets like skewered by a chick's stiletto was him.
yes, that's Ian, and that's classic Ian. He has, you check out all his you can go to his website. He's done commercials for Nike, for Apple, he's done all kinds of high profile work, especially in the sort of body horror genre, which I didn't really know about before.
Body horror?
Body horror.
Okay.
Which is like a genre of, I'm already out of my depth even talking about it this much. But check out he also did a music video for Vince Staples.
Okay.
So that was all him.
So
that was all his.
yeah, I mean, this is where I was going to mention Tyler the Creator, actually, because the first Tyler the Creator video I ever saw was the one where he's got like roaches crawling all over his face, and I couldn't finish it because I was so disgusted. I like wanted to vomit. But that, like, seeing the rat get skewered and like this other weird, creepy, like body horror feels like the right term, even though I don't know what it means. Yeah, it was very Tyler. And I was wondering how much of that was you versus the team. And it sounds like the team was largely responsible for that. Did you weigh in or like ask what these different elements were about, or hide any Easter eggs in it yourself? How did that go?
No, the music video is Ian's video. Literally all I gave him was the setting, and everything else about it, from the rat to the clown to the bullet reversal to the names, the name cards on the politicians. It's all Ian's vision. I was just like, I made the song, and I'm a soldier for the music video. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And it was all I could do just to keep my energy high in that 30-degree room in Ukraine with no
Was
heat.
it in Ukraine? I was like, why are all the credit names in like Russian? So it was shot in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And what was that, a budget choice, or why was that?
Budget, team. He has a team in Ukraine that he works with a lot on commercial work.
Okay.
So when he was scouting different places, it just turned out for several reasons that Ukraine was the best option. We looked at Spain and South Africa too, but.
Oh my gosh, that is super interesting to know.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like you can't tell me why Coleman #1 got shot if it wasn't your choice.
Nope.
It's up to us.
That is up to you, the viewer.
Yeah. There's so much to be proud of in this video. I'm sure that you're so proud of it. If I were in your shoes, I feel like what I would love the most about it is how hands-off you were able to be. Because I know, like, just to find a team of people that you can trust enough to say, you take this, you do your thing, you be awesome in your own way, and I'll just show up as, like, quote unquote, the talent on set. That must feel really good.
Yeah. And, I don't know this for a fact, but my guess is that's kind of how maybe most music videos work, is like the role of the music video director gets a little bit undersold, I think, in people's conception. People see a music video by an artist and assume that the artist themselves directed it, which is usually not the case. And so music video directors don't get as much love relative to the music videos as, say, film directors get relative to the film. It's like, you like a film, the first thing you look up is who's the director, right? Very few people do that for music videos. So I feel as a class of people, they are somewhat their value is somewhat undersold. I
think that might be because, at least partially, there's this weird idealization or idolization of the artists themselves, and a purism that says, if you're a singer, you have to be a songwriter too. And if you're a singer, you have to be your own producer, you have to be playing the guitar yourself or whatever. And I don't know where people get these ideas. I mean, back in the days of Gershwin, you had a lyricist and you had a composer. They weren't the same person. And nobody had any shame about that. There's like a beauty in the specialism. Now I like being a singer-songwriter. It's a lot of fun, but if you gave me a song that was better than what I could write, I see no reason why I shouldn't sing it. And the same would go to directing. I think we like imagine that artists are these like creative geniuses who can do everything and should do everything.
Right.
But I like what you're saying there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I guess I understand it more so from the singer-songwriter, because music being all kind of the same skill, not the same skill, but being all really closely related skills, you're more impressed by people that can do it all, like Stevie Wonder and Prince. It's like he played every instrument on this, he wrote every song. It is more impressive. And so I think I've also heard there's a trend of really major artists with enough clout to do this in the industry, basically insisting that they have a writer credit on every song, even if they didn't contribute, because so many people want to write for them that they're willing to take that hit to what the truth of the situation was.
You probably make a lot more money too. I mean, publishing is more lucrative than being an artist, isn't it?
That's a good question. I mean, definitely the more money is in publishing. Well, I'm not sure. I guess it depends on the case, but
yeah, probably.
Like
it's
if I
ever
were
evolving too. It's hard to like keep track of.
Right. If I were like a songwriter, like a freelance songwriter, and some A-list singer like Beyonce or Rihanna liked one of my songs, but insisted that they have a writer credit, and that's just the norm of their people, what am I going to say? No. It's like, this could be my big break. There's a power dynamic there that can allow for a bending of the truth as to who is doing stuff, which is probably problematic, but I think does happen quite a bit.
Yeah, there are a lot of weird supply and demand story problems in the music industry. I always tell people that I can make more money in Williston, North Dakota, where I work in oil and gas, playing a show, than I can make in LA, because in LA you have to be the one who's paying for the space, and you're making a percentage of ticket sales, but that's if you can sell the tickets. And it's really like there should be like an economics of music class where they go into some of this stuff and what drives people to make the kinds of decisions that you're talking about. Let's talk about the song that you more recently released earlier in March. It's called Straight A's. Did that process unfold similarly to Blasphemy? How did that go?
Yeah, I guess I made that beat, wrote that song, sent it to some people, and then that one was a little different because I was more involved in the video itself. And ultimately I was, I chose the specific cuts of the whole video. I essentially chose the edit of the video.
Did you edit it yourself, or are you just there over the shoulder of the editor backseat driving?
Backseat driving. So I had way more control on the final outcome, but the storyboard and the concept came from Desh, from my manager and business partner, and ML Post was the director. So they kind of had the whole concept of it, and I ended up, along with them, basically choosing the exact edit. So I had a lot more control over that one. It was more of like a in-house effort, if that makes sense. And it was great. I really like how it came out. It was a way, like smaller sort of budget thing.
Yeah, you were a recurring cast member in that. There's a lot of different Colemans there, but they're not characters, they're extras.
Right. And we filmed that at a school in LA.
In LA? So, which school?
Yeah. I don't remember the name of the school, actually.
All right. What was the opening scene about, where you're sitting in there with the principal? Or is that all Desh's territory?
Yeah, that was Yeah, Desh had the concept for that too. He wanted it to be kind of like the Oracle from the Matrix.
Yes, it
Like,
reminded me of that so much.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I thought it was a cool concept. It was kind of just like it's Oracle from the Matrix combined with like the T from Get Out. A lot of like oblique references to different movie moments, and I thought it was kind of cool. I
I
don't know.
thought it was super cool.
It has whatever meaning you want it to have.
That's the sense that I got, because I don't see you as a preachy person. I mean, there's kind of like what you were saying. I don't feel like music is just another way for you to make your statements that you've been making in essays. And so someone else might look at this and be like, oh, he's talking about like how Black people should care more about education or whatever. And I'm like, come on, like it's not, I feel like it's not that deep, unless it is. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't, I don't believe in deciding what it means to people, because I know that songs that mean one thing to me mean something else to someone else. And I think it's precisely the fact that music can have an immense power to change people's lives and perspectives without having one objective meaning that makes it so powerful, that makes music so powerful. So the truth is that I like we were talking about earlier, I get a song, the creative vision for the song does not come attached with propositional content. It's not like when I'm making the song, there's some set of beliefs that I have that I want to express in song form. It much more feels like what you would imagine divine inspiration would feel like, in the sense that you just have a vague but somehow also clear sense of what the shape of the song is going to be and what the song is going to feel like. And when you're closer and further from it. It's like, it's almost like there's like a hot cold sensor somewhere in your mind. And if you write a lyric that you're getting hotter, you just know it. And if you write a lyric that you're getting colder, you also just know it. And by the end, you have a whole product that can now be analyzed in terms of what propositions, what claims you're making. But at no point in the process were you actually trying to make claims. You were just trying to get towards an intuitive and gut sense of what the song already is.
100%.
Yeah.
And I find myself really recoiling from songs that clearly started with the proposition. Like, I'm going to make a song about affirmative action, or I'm going to make a song about, there needs to be a minimum wage. Like, come on. It's just hard. It's hard for me to imagine.
Really likes
Yeah, it's really bizarre. And I don't see that in your music. So I found it utterly refreshing. I mean, I've said this either on the podcast or other Brave Angels YouTube videos, and someday I'm going to get in trouble for it. But this, like, the anti-woke rap thing is kind of grinding my gears, because I feel like much of it. Oh, I'm not going to name names.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to
name names. Because I'm so tapped out of that to begin with.
You're totally fine.
I don't even really know.
You should just keep it that way. Definitely keep it that way. Well, I have some questions from Twitter. We got quite a bit of replies on the "What should I ask Coleman Hughes" tweet that I issued last week. So you could do these rapid fire. You can elaborate a little bit more, whatever you're comfortable with. Jim is asking what equipment you use to create your beats.
Logic Pro 10 I do to make all my beats and to mix my songs. And then I could even show it to you, but it's under a mass of clothes and books, an Akai keyboard.
Is that the MIDI keyboard that you talked about?
MIDI keyboard, yeah.
Okay. And what kind of mic do you have, just for the vocalists out there?
I use a Neumann U87.
Nice. I can co-sign the Logic Pro. I'm also a Logic Pro chick, but I only do tracking. I don't do like mixing or anything else myself there. Trip asks, go on.
I think Logic is great. I mean, I acknowledge that Ableton is better for making beats and Pro Tools is better for mixing. but I also think that at the end of the day, the best tool is the one which you know how to use best. So I make beats and fully mix songs on Logic Pro that are better than what a lot of some people at least would be doing with Ableton and Pro
Doing on
Tools,
Ableton.
because it's the thing that I've done my Malcolm Gladwell hours on. So
Yes.
it's just hard. It's hard to like change once you've gotten your like proverbial PhD in one program.
Totally. One caveat I would add to that, though, is that if you're producing for other people, Pro Tools is probably the way to go, right? Because you're working with so many different engineers and studios, and Pro Tools is like the least common denominator. So if you constantly have to import project files from, the singer that you're working with, or this, rapper that you're producing for, it can get messy if you're just using Logic or just using Ableton.
Yep. Totally agree.
So Trip asks, are there any other rappers you'd want featured on your tracks?
Yeah.
Maybe the entire list of influences.
Yeah, exactly. Previously. Yeah. Refer to my earlier answer on all my influences.
Perfect. What are there any of those that you think would actually join you on a song?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Great. Everybody should go spam his entire list of influences with.
That's Kanye.
Perfect. Ed asks, okay, so there's a question from Steven here. How much money did he spend on those videos? You're welcome to plead the fifth on that. Although I was super curious about that myself. Ed asks how you fund yourself as an independent artist.
Ed asks how I fund myself as an independent artist. Well, the Blasphemy video there, because Ian was doing most of it, he was able to call in favors for a lot of things and spend far less money than it looked like we spent collectively. But yeah, I mean, I don't really want to talk in general about my funding questions any more than any other private person would want to talk about their funding.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I think when I look at your career, it's like you have another occupation as a writer and you're making money. I mean, I'm only speaking for myself, really. I have another occupation and I use that occupation to fund my music when I need a big influx of capital. And I think that's pretty intuitive. Theodore asks, how's his embouchure these days? And you can tell people what an embouchure is while you're at it.
My embouchure is great. Okay, well, an embouchure is a pretentious French word for your mouth when you play a brass instrument or other woodwind instrument. So it's just the way you form your lips in order to, say, play the trumpet or the trombone and tuba, which I play. So yeah, I've been playing a lot lately, actually. I didn't play for almost a year during COVID, but then I got back into it and I play at the Olive Tree Cafe in New York quite often. I play at the Django sometimes in New York. These are different venues. So yeah, my embouchure is quite good. And there was a video of me playing Chardas on trombone, which is an old, like, I think Hungarian folk song, on Twitter from many months ago. So you can go judge my embouchure for yourself.
That's great. My brother actually found a video of you playing trombone totally by accident. It was with the Steve Feifke band.
Yeah, that's right.
It's really old. Like, he was just watching it of his own accord because he's a jazz head, and he's like, wait, I know that guy.
Yeah, I remember I did that. I don't know if it was a whole album or something many years ago. And I think it just came out like last year.
Really?
Like
the video, I think, said 2016, but it's possible he didn't like distribute the songs.
That makes more sense. That makes more sense.
Well, speaking of albums, a different Steven, who is not so fiscally invasive, asks, is there an album coming? You already said yes. So I'm going to follow that up with, when can we expect it from you?
This year.
Yeah, baby. Coleman Hughes, thank you so much for being here. Where can people find you online and support your work?
Thank you for having me, Alma. They can find me. Conversations with Coleman is my podcast, wherever podcasts are listened to. You can subscribe to my podcast through my website, colemanhughes.org. You can follow me on Twitter at coldxman, at Instagram, the same. And yeah, check out my music, Cold X Man, but the X is silent. just Coleman on Spotify, on Apple Music, my music videos on YouTube, anywhere you listen to music.
Perfect. I'm super excited for what you've got coming out, Coleman, and I'm really grateful that you shared more.
Anytime.
Talk to you later, Coleman.
All right.
Take care.
Peace.
Yo. My mama raised in the flames of the South Bronx, without a name and no food in the household. Me, I was raised with a spoon in my mouth. Few cars in the yard, cartoons not allowed though. I see my mama in my dreams when I'm pensive. I see you niggas throwing shade in my mentions. I hit that with the sun ray disinfectant. I put the double forte in offensive. Yeah, I got straight A's in my prep school. It's probably why I'm getting paid like the Mets do. Another day, another check, nothing special. Another day, same 10 in my bedroom. Like Shabazz, I was 8th grade president. Playing jazz became my pain medicine. Saw you in Congress, wrong color skin. Caught in the spotlight, raw venison.